Hi, welcome. This is Pavan, and I'm here with my very good friend Ali today. And we are doing a special podcast, and this is really focused on the Pluto in Capricorn transit. Um, and this follows the arc of when we met each other, really our adult lives. And it encompasses a lot. There's a lot of energy connected to this. So, this is part of why we were compelled to jump on and share some information.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm just thinking about the fact too that you're a Capricorn and I'm an Aquarius, and it's like
Yes.
we met at kind of like a little before, but really like this we've realized over discussing this for the last few months that like our relationship arc really began at like the start of this Capricorn and Pluto and Capricorn transit and like continuing on now into the Pluto and Aquarius. And
Right. And
yeah,
also realizing that this has been a pretty hard hitting thing for a lot of people, including ourselves. And I think I had mentioned this, but I'm not an astrology expert. I didn't even necessarily know that this was a thing before a few months ago. And then as that information came out, it was just like, oh wow, this is really hitting home. And then that translated to really feeling it in the physical body and some other details that we'll get into. But it turns out it's been hugely impactful. And I know that I am very glad to be in the Aquarius energy at this point.
yes. The changeover seems pretty savage for many people. But I think
Yes.
also I do feel like we were all meant to be more attuned to astrology to prepare for this transit. This feels that big. Um,
Right.
and obviously people who are astrologers agree, like, yes, this is one of the biggest t- astrological events of our time. And it is the only version of it we will experience as the people we are right now in these bodies. So yeah, I think it's just really interesting. And the more we've all talked about it, the more I think many of us have realized how crucial the last 16-year cycle was, and um yeah, just like how profound it feels to be moving into a new time. And so right, like originally we've started to really be supporting each other, like we felt really like we've been in touch, but like it's felt really important to meet weekly and really support each
Right.
other through a transitional period for the last few months. And then we realize it's part of that has been supporting each other through the transition out of this phase of energy on an astrological level. And then we realized, hey, wait a minute, we got this party going together. And really
Right.
set a lot of intentions and made a lot of plans together at the start of this transit. And so it feels fitting that it's like somehow at the end of the transit, when we're not actually still living inside of the lifestyle and the plans, and like, we were younger and we were living near each other, and it was just like we were business partners for part of this
Right.
Pluto and Cappy time. And so it's like, wow, it's so fitting that we just naturally realized, hey, we got to team back up in the version that is our version of teaming up now, as the women and the age we are now, versus when we were younger and teaming up like that. Um, I keep making that sound so vague. We were not like dating. I'm like, when we were in a lifestyle, but I just mean like we were in that intensity of being women in our 20s who were just starting and building our life, and we like really came together. I mean, that's what we're going to talk about now, but like we really came
Yes.
together at the start of our adult life and set a lot of its intentions together. And there's that closeness in that time and space people have in their 20s together, and we really had that together. Like we had this intense sisterhood business partner relationship when we were young women. Then we've been on these journeys that sometimes took us separately, sometimes have brought us back together. And then like all of a sudden it's felt really crucial to be back together. And then it was like, oh my God, it's the end of this transit that we started together.
It's
And
kind of incredible. I mean, it's a story for the ages. And I think, You know, we both said at a couple of times, like, you can't even make this stuff up. It's almost been like we've been living a movie. And I think even this container of support towards the end of the transit, we set that up a little bit before we were fully aware that that was probably the main reason we were setting it up. And then it just became, oh my God, you know, hold on to your hat is really an understatement. This is 16 years worth of intense patterning and energy and closing the loops and all the things to process. And I haven't felt something process this physically, emotionally, and honestly in all the layers in a bit. So yeah, it's been quite a thing.
Hey, totally. Yeah, and so, like, as we start, I think one thing that we would just like to encourage anyone who's listening is I don't know why I'm, like, taking this big pause, but, like, I wanna organize what I was gonna say. So,
Yes.
basically, what we've realized is one of the things we really learned over this Pluto and Capricorn transit was separation. One of the things we've really healed, both of us individually, and I think collectively, and even in our relationship with each other, is separation and reunification. And what we have really been noticing in the field is like how much separation has been encouraged and has been amplified as we're coming into this transit into Aquarius, like because it lines up with just all the crazy shit that's been going on in the world, including the election that just happened. And I think something that is a real shared understanding and value for you and I is like how how much we have divested from separating ourselves from others, particularly around thinking that we have differences because of beliefs and lifestyles and yeah, practices. And so like I think we have already been on the same wavelength of like, no, it's a time for unification. And specifically the Aquarian age is about community and reunification. And so I think like the real intention when we first were going to do this podcast, it was like a tell all. That's what I was really
We're
thinking.
mad. That's what it was.
And it's a tell all of what we've experienced in this 16-year cycle as young women who,
Yes.
like, came into this cycle together as spiritual entrepreneurs. And like the thing that's unique to us is that we've stayed in it. Like
Yes.
very few people, it's different now, but in the early 2000s, very few people were in their early 20s popping out of the gate being like, we're going to be spiritual healing entrepreneurs. Honestly, we can say that because we were in all these communities. We were always the youngest people there, you know? And so like that, which was part of our allyship. And now obviously I think that's changed a lot, but yeah, like we had a lot of, and we're both still in it, and we both have remained like full-time in our profession for this entire time, even though we no longer work together. And that's unique too, because a lot of people are like at a certain point, like, gots to go.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
so like a lot of people who came from earlier times have just honestly got burned out because doing
Right.
this work until more recently really was it was very intense. It still is, but there's new opportunities, I think, at this time. But anyway, we've just really been thinking about the idea of the separation, the experience we had of separation, the experience of where we separated ourselves from things that were totally there for us to receive in this angsty journey of Pluto and Capricorn spiritual capitalism. And yeah, and how important it is to release that delusion. And so I think like now what we've realized is this is less of a tell all, although I do want to like
Get into
discuss,
that a little.
get
I
into it
mean,
a little bit. And
yes,
it's
we're
more of a mission statement of like unification.
yes.
And I would really encourage people to like think about who you started this transit with. Like who are the people that you were really planting seed with in the beginning of 2008? Because I think there's a gift to give each other if those people are still in your life or could become part of your life again. There's a circle back that could be really profound. It's definitely been very profound for us.
It's really incredible that this Aquarian energy now, at least for this transit, is about 2 decades long. And so, yeah, on the other side of this arc, it's really about celebrating this reunification. but there was some real blood, sweat, and tears to get to this point. So we're going to share some of that.
Yes.
Uh,
So we're gonna get it cracking. So would you
yes,
agree with me that it's like our original intention first of all, we realized, hey, wait a minute, we're walking each other home, if you will, after
yes,
this nutty 16 years that we started together. We're getting the band back together to get ourselves into the transition into a time that like we've been doing Aquarian work this whole time in a system that was really not built for Aquarian ideals. Now we're actually moving into a time that astrologically is about Aquarian ideals. And so we're reconnected on that point. We've moved from this being a dirty tell-all.
right.
We've processed a lot of things. And that's something I think also you realize is like if you give yourself the opportunity to feel what you're feeling and sit and discuss and move your body and move the thoughts through writing, through movement, through support from the people in your life, like not everything has to be a public discussion. And then
Absolutely.
and then you get to the thing that actually will be um beneficial for other people to receive.
Right. I mean, the be having, like you said, been in this Aquarian energy doing the thing before it was in the energy that we are in now, and are moving forward. And it's about community and creativity and all of these things that I love. And I'm really excited about there being a support in a new way for all of that. And I don't even feel attached to what that looks like or what it needs to look like. There is just a known factor of possibilities and a shifted energy that supports the work. So after an arc of a bit of a struggle here and there, it's just like so welcome. So yeah, very excited.
So we hope this time just invites you to like think back if you haven't already done some revisiting, like take a moment. We're still in that window of time to like
Yes.
revisit, reconnect, reunite with the energies and the seeds you planted in January of 2008 and then come to where we are today. Like what have you learned? What are you bringing with you? What are you not bringing with you? And where can you create connection within yourself and with others? Because like that's actually what is going to thrive in this new period of time. So yeah, that's more that's we it's good that we gave it a little while to kind of process and marinate because I think like we're actually where we want to be. We want to offer something that's actually current to the frequency we're in now.
Yes.
Um yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking about because I just have been writing a book for 3 years, and it was like, that's how long it really took to write a book about something that happened in my life personally, where, like, the energy is current. Like, we can talk about the past, but, that's important, but, like, we really wanna make sure we've done the processing and we've given ourselves space and time so that we can chisel into what is actually true and current and, like, potent in the moment when we talk about the past. Um,
Right. So if you can feel into the possibility, like Ali was saying, anyone you can circle back to from the 2008 timeline or whatever the details of this look like for you, if it's not something that you've been dialed into quite yet, but it starts to resonate, making that space to just delve into it and process it because the other side will be glorious.
yeah. Um, yeah, so I wanna do a little interview with you and, like, ask you
Yes,
about that, but I wonder if we should just pause for a moment and just invite people to just drop into that and
I
bring
love that.
that
Yeah.
awareness in with them. So just, like, just dropping in now, really relaxing into your pelvis, really softening the belly, really relaxing the shoulders. Notice the throat relaxing, the hands are relaxing. And just inviting an energy that represents the start of 2008, the seeds that you planted that have grown into something that are going to come with you into this new transit here in November 2024. Just inviting an image, a feeling, a word to be right in front of your mind's eye, right in front of your face here, even with your eyes closed. Let it surprise you or let it confirm something. And let's just sit here for a couple breaths and just like really reconnect to this relationship. Maybe you're seeing a person or an idea or a goal. Just really breathing it in and feeling what it feels like in your body now in 2024. And just know that that energy will continue to travel with us in this conversation. And this is just a message for you of something to really be in touch with and to realize like it's still with you. It's gone from a seed or an intention. It may have changed form multiple times, and now it's grown into something else, and it's still with you. And we're going into this next journey together. So maybe you have a friend, an ally, a partner, a companion that comes from that earlier time of 2008 that you can have these conversations with, like Pavan and I are having, or maybe right now you just created that companion through connecting to this energy, knowing that this energy will travel with you as we continue on. Just coming back into the space. Hmm. And yeah, is there anything you want to share that you just reconnected
Yeah,
with?
I think right away, I could feel as we dropped in some energy in my heart center, and it was like, okay, I'm a little nervous, which normally I just don't feel that way at all. I don't think for something like this, but I could definitely feel that it's connected to the amount of energy that has shifted. So that might seem a little vague, but I just really felt it in the heart center. And it dissipated, but it was just an indicator of the significance of this moment and this time. And then authenticity is what came up for me, which we'll talk about, I think, in more ways than one throughout this. But that is really the word right now and going forward into next year. And well, I'll just share this. So, a big takeaway from this whole transit for me is that you are your own guru. And we were talking about this a little bit before, but really along the way, coming into being a young adult and having this sort of conviction around I'm going to be an entrepreneur and successful and I'm going to do a lot of things on my own, and then all of what was wrapped up around what that might look like, it was like, okay, I'm not quite sure of who I am yet, so trying to figure that out and looking to a lot of people or mentors or teachers, and honestly giving some of my power away when I didn't really realize that's what was happening, to learn some lessons to get to a place where I feel like, yeah, I'm my own guru and so is everyone else. And it's very simple.
Mm, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just like connecting with your words and what you said, and also like the nervousness connected with that message of just like are you ready for that? Like it's almost like
Right.
are you ready for the truth? Which is like it's almost like Wizard of Oz. It's like are you ready for the truth that it's like the real wisdom is something you reveal within yourself,
Right.
and it's
And
not something to purchase, or I mean, it I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I
yes,
also don't feel like we have to act like we can't enjoy the exchange of, like, learning and experiencing and growing through external sources, but it's like, yeah, it's just kind of like, whoa, the
we're in
reality.
a
And
yeah, we're in a very different place now. So the place I was in then, when I was, involved in various exchanges or consuming things, learning things, etc., I just had a lot to learn, and so I was vulnerable to. I mean, I don't want to make it. Maybe that word indicates some sort of like victim piece, which I really don't feel at all. I feel very at peace with everything and honored to have learned what I've learned, but I had some blinders to things that I just didn't have life experience for yet. So now we're just in a really grounded, different place.
I love that. It kind of, I feel a parallel here, with what you're saying with, like, basically what I'm hearing from you is, like, I wanted things that I didn't actually I wanted things, and I went to places that told me, "I can teach you how to acquire this." But, like, the real thing I didn't yet have was how to receive it.
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
that okay? Because that's interesting, like, I'm like, "Wow," I'm a little surprised by what just came through for me, and, like, I just wanna remind people who are, well, I don't know if we said this yet, like, when this transit started, how old were we? 24 and 25,
Yes.
I think. Yeah, because 'cause we're 4 you're 41?
Hmm.
So we were 24 and 25, and we are 40 and 41. That's
And
right.
so we both,
Yeah.
we went to college. Interestingly, I studied writing, creative writing. Allie studied journalism. We had some, similarities and those sorts of things. And then we went to a school for holistic nutrition. And so that's kind of where this all starts. So, we've got some education behind us. We've got ideas on what we want to do and where we want things to go, kind of fresh out of the gate into this energy.
Yeah. Yeah, so what I was thinking of is, like, at that time in my life, I was expecting to feel more of what you just shared, like, because at that time in my life, it was like we had just had these different initiations into, like, understanding, we had done traditional school, then we had done these sort of non-traditional healing paths. And then we had been kind of introduced the idea of, like, and the way you get to do these things is by learning to be a business, like, um, tycoon. I'm just thinking of someone in LA used to call me a priestess tycoon. And it's like, yeah, it was like, oh, I didn't know I had to learn that too. And so, like, we were also very young. And so I expected to tune in just now and really feel connected to all of that, which was just like business and growing, and like the pressure I felt at the start of this transit to make things happen that I thought needed to happen, and um wanted to have happen. But what I really saw was just like love and relationship, and like that energy. And that
Mm,
was like also at that time we were like young and just kind of like in my first experiences of like what it felt like to really feel in love with someone, was like early, I was just like in the early experiences of like really being in like adult relationships for the first time. And and also like the thing that changed, so I, like, kinda connected with that and, like, felt some warmth around that, and then it was, like, the thing that's different now at 2024 is, like, just, like, I really know how to have and embody things, and I think we're moving out of the conceptual and the ideation, which is interesting because, like, Aquarian is so air, it's like air, right? And it's like it's the ether, it's the vibe, it's the ideas before they're in form. But I really feel like this Capricorn cycle was about like trying and learning and having ideas and having concepts, and like and then like actually, and then feeling angst about whether or not they get to happen, or how to work and make them happen, or what the effort is required to have it. And then it's like now we're coming into this time of just like, and now we can have it and embody it because we've seen all the ways it doesn't work, or we've seen all the ways it can still work even when the rules have changed, or the form has changed. And I just feel like that's part of my life. It was like I really wanted love and relationship. I wanted to be able to prioritize that. And I did not know how to have that and have this life that was felt like such a calling to be in the spiritual work, to be in the creative work, and then to realize, oh, that requires to be in like business development, which is something I had never thought of as something I was going to be doing at all. And all of a sudden it was like, yeah,
Right.
got to be doing that. And it was like I was always in these like angsty, conflicted feelings of like how to have relationship and how to have the purpose and the mission. And I feel like so many of the clients I work with right now, like I think that is when you feel a huge Aquarian age mission or calling, it can feel um really, it can feel like, first of all, who I need to figure out how to do it. I feel it. How do I do it? And it's like, who's the guru? Who has the idea? Who has the key to unlock the thing? And then it's like the spoiler is you had the key the whole time. There's just like there's a readiness that's involved, and then it's like I want to have love and connection and like beauty and love and joy in my personal life, but like I'm here on a mission and I got to do this thing, and like
Yes.
got to make the sacrifices for the things to have that I can have these things later but I have to make the sacrifice now. And like this always, the mission always has to be the priority. You know what I mean? And I didn't realize they were one and the same. And there's so many people I work with now who are really successful creators and business people where it's like, no, there is no secret door to unlock about how to make the next thing happen in your work when like you're not letting in the love and the joy and the well-being in your body and in your personal relationships. And so like I don't know, I just feel like I wasn't thinking of it, but that really has been one of the greatest lessons of like the Capricorn age into the Aquarian age for me is like it's all one and the same. The mission is love. That's it. And it's
Yeah,
like,
it feels so simple and maybe slightly different than not that I had expectations exactly, but than where we are in terms of discussing this than what we expected. I would agree. The mission and the purpose, even before it was clear what that was just put above everything else. So
yeah,
it was really like, and I will say, like, having this be a Capricorn transit, Capricorn sun, Capricorn moon, there's a lot of that. So I think I focused on that in a way that um, was just kind of nutty. I mean, I say that with compassion.
right there with you. Yeah.
One thing that's coming up that kind of lands the beginning of it a little bit. When I was fresh out of college, I had an editorial position in the city, and it was at a place where, I could have gotten like assistant editor, and then they had editor, and they had some kind of, like hierarchy of these positions. And because I was doing well with whatever I had studied, I got the editor position versus assistant editor right out of the gate. So I was feeling like, oh my God, this is, amazing. And then I was like barely a week into working in this corporate environment as an editor, doing something I thought would be glamorous for some reason and that I would love. And it's not that there was nothing I loved about it, but ultimately it was not my calling and not the environment. And so, later, especially with the holistic nutrition school, and then in the direction that we went with some other things, this idea of, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to, be successful and create money and create everything in my own details, my own container, but then looking to many other people for guidance on how to do it and what that should look like. It felt so important because I was so clear on, oh my God, I don't want to do what I thought I wanted to do. And I don't want to do the conventional thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was a very strong impulse at the time.
Yeah, so I feel like you're bringing us right where we want to go, which is just a little nutshell of like how did we get like where were we starting? What was the starting position of the Capricorn time for us. So it was like you had gone from, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, but you had gone to school for writing and like gone right into the writing. And then how did you get into the healing? Because by 2008, you were like on that mission. So it was like, how did you get there?
Essentially, I was offered that position and I didn't last long, right, in this editorial position. It was like a few months and then I just quit and I just realized like this is not how I want to live my life. I don't know what is the next step. And the school that we went to at the time was located in Manhattan in the city, and I was living in Brooklyn. And so I just had some kind of like hodgepodge of jobs. I was running dogs on the Upper East Side of Manhattan and, doing different part-time things. And then a friend of mine told me about the open house for this school. And, she was like, I think, and I always had a healthier lifestyle and an interest in that. My grandfather growing up was kind of a health nut. And so he put, all kinds of healthy things in my lunch that I couldn't trade to the other kids. And I eventually acquired a taste for after a long while. So that's just a certain detail that goes to it. But essentially, I went to the open house and there was such a, now I'm going to say years later, learning what it was, there was a little bit of like a culty energy in the way that they were marketing what it was. But also within that, it was talking about, okay, you can do something where you can help people, you can be in service to people, you can change their lives. That was like a really important aspect. And then you can make money, you can have your own business, you can be independent. Honestly, it was just all of the right things at the right time that I, wanted or needed to hear. And so it just became sign me up. And also sign me up. I don't care if I have the money. I don't care if this makes sense in any logistical way, which, as something we've discussed and will likely come up again, was another pattern that has been through this arc of, it was coming from a combination of an intuitive place and a
Mm,
place of, I know what I don't want.
yeah.
And so it was a really amazing open house. I don't remember a ton of the details. I just remember that energy of it and thinking, oh, this is something I need to get involved in. Going from whatever 9 to 5 thing and just being like, oh my God, what am I going to do? To now there was community and there was a high excited energy and there was possibility and there were people with belief systems and ideas that like I hadn't been introduced to yet at all. I mean, I think that's where some of the more spiritual and new age stuff started to come up. And I had no context for that before this. So
Cool.
just jump
Okay.
right in.
So that was like 2006, 2007, right? Or 2000.
Right. Yeah.
And then, so yeah, so by 2008, you were in the second year of this
Oh, right.
program.
2008 was right. The second year was like a special program. Not everyone necessarily did the second year, but again, going along the lines of, if I'm going to go, I'm going to go hard and do the thing all the way with every detail. So went through the second year, and that was more retreat based in structure. So we actually met, and you, of course, I want you to share your timeline also of getting to this point, but we actually met at Omega Institute, I believe,
Oh,
or had a more personal exchange there where we were
yes.
suddenly in a canoe just out
Yes,
on
we
the
did.
water.
I totally forgot
Yeah.
that. We did meet in a
Yeah.
canoe.
That's one of my earlier, just a personal conversation about where we were with things, and definitely excited, beautiful day, healthy food, charismatic speakers, good people involved.
Yeah.
So it was an exciting thing to be a part of. And we had some really, I would say, similar values and aspirations at that point. So my memory is we were really just like sharing in the excitement of that as we were out there, trying to get around the lake. I mean, I don't think we either one of
I
us was
so remember.
overly adept at that part, but
No, I so remember that now. And really,
yeah,
that really should have foreshadowed for us. Like, here
we're
we are
the
in
only ones
canoe.
out here.
We're
And
the only ones out in this canoe. We're having a hard time getting around.
exactly, we're
Um,
trying to get around. We could barely get back, but
yeah,
it's a beautiful day. So,
yeah. Yeah, wow. Thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah, so my summary of just like how we landed into this 2008 together was similar. Just I was in college for journalism. You know, I graduated, it was a 5-year program. I graduated in 2007 from that and was already in the school Pavan's talking about by that point, because my high school and college years, my brother and dad both had cancer, so it was like my passion had been music and photography and writing, but I was also having this like huge initiation into like the healthcare system, and also to the same extent, but not something I realized until later, like to trauma and to like ancestry medicine and being part of like karmic stories of the family and participating in these like really intense spiritual experiences. And going through that through high school, I was just still trying to like catch up. And you know, it's hard when you're the person where your family's in the hospital, you know, and you're trying to like still catch up and still be on track of things and still be very passionate about the things you were first inspired by in life, which for me, I was always very like empathetic and intuitive, but it was like I didn't know what that had to do with with life and work. It was like, oh, I'm going to be a music journalist, so that's what I went to college for. And then my dad passed halfway through college, and it was such a big initiation for my brother and I. And my brother had gone to this school that Pavan went to. I think you might have met Gabe first before me. Is that true? I think you
I
guys
think
met
so.
and maybe
Yeah, it was
like
like
get in the canoe together.
outside.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so it was like this big initiation into like that experience while still in college for this whole different sort of lifestyle, and just really not feeling like I could make meaning of the direction my life had gone. I think that's something we shared, is like we were like having these experiences where we were that we wanted to make meaning of, and we like couldn't find them in the traditional places we were, like these traditional educational institutions. I just didn't know how. I like came back to school and it was just like it was a really unsupportive environment to the trauma I had just gone through. And I don't have to like get into all of it, but it was just like the way my professors, it was also the George Bush had just been elected over John Kerry, and I was going to journalism school in Boston. So this was like the greatest tragedy my professors had like ever gone through, and just were like, hey, your dad dying is not the tragedy here. Like, you're a journalist. This is the thing. And like, get back on track.
right.
And it was like, this is not for me. Like, the way I'm being treated, the experience I'm having, this is not for me. And so to your point, like it was extreme. Like my brother had said, hey, my brother had done this program first and was like, hey, this is a place we can like really do the work we clearly are going to do through the experiences we just had. And my brother was just a huge influence on my life, and we had been through so much together. So I was like, okay, like I didn't even know this was a thing to do. And then suddenly, so I went there in 2006 and 2007, and then it was as if like it was like as if I internally switched majors. All and it was like I still graduated from
Right.
journalism school, but it was like I had a lot of hurt, and I felt very unseen and unreceived in the like life experience I had. And there was just I'm sure if I went back in time, like I could have done things differently. People didn't know. We didn't have the discussions about grief and loss that we have in the world now. But yeah, I think it brought a lot of fire to us when we met and we were in these programs where it was like, oh my God, people care about the things we care about. And
Yeah. I
we're
think
passionate about the same things. What were you going to say?
particularly, when you were saying you internally switched majors, that really resonates with me as well. I mean, I was so excited about my major in school, and I like
Yeah.
loved writing and I loved it. And for just a tiny bit of context, I grew up in a house with my grandparents and my dad, and then all of his siblings. My youngest uncle's like 15 years older than me, and they all had these really cool jobs, and they were very focused on their careers, and nobody got married and nobody had kids. And I think only one person maybe decided to get a house at one point. And, a couple of things changed fast forward to now. And it's not about that being good or bad, but those things were not um, on my radar as significant one way or the other necessarily, but I was very much like, I want to be successful and have this cool career and have an impact in the world and, help people and have fun doing it. And so when I had that editorial position and it was like such a bummer, I just was like, wait, this
Yeah.
is not what all of the people in my family who I look up to are doing. They're like having this real impact and influence and traveling around and, um, so yeah, so the fire piece is really accurate because there was just a lot behind, and maybe there's some other layers to that too, but for another
Yeah, no,
time. But
I love this because I think like it's really, if you're listening, it's like are you listening? If you're listening, it's really cool to think back to like the starting position. And I think
yes,
if there's things you've been, because just many of the my clients and friends and people I've been talking to and myself, as Pavan knows, like we've just been really revisiting as we came into this period of time, like what we're happy about, what went wrong, what we were disappointed in, where we have regrets, where we can be proud and be like that was a good move. And it's just been a very rollicking time to revisit these things. But I think what I'm really appreciating is coming back to the beginning of the story and remembering like why we had the fire we did for the work
yes,
we do, and we still do, and it's only evolved. I mean, it's evolved, but it's like we had this fire, we felt the truth of it, and we also were feeling very like the separation had already begun. Like we had felt we were feeling very separated from the traditions and the roots and the educational institutions that we were in until 2008. Like,
right. Like,
and
where do I
so
fit in? What do I do now?
right. And meanwhile, also just remembering like we had only a couple years out in the world as like adults, like we really had just come out of college. And so um something that I just feel like for anyone listening, it can be really interesting to like go back and think about what had just transpired in your life previous to 2008 and like what you were coming into that new year of January 2008, like what was the fire about? And as I revisit that, I think it can just give us a lot more compassion and understanding about some of the choices we made that like maybe weren't unnecessary or misguided or like depleting, but like felt right at the time. And I just feel like the root of the decisions and the ideas we tried in life and in business and in relationships that I would put under that umbrella of like a little misguided, a
Right.
little depleting, like disappointing on the return. It's like they come from decisions that were based on separation and othering.
Yes.
And any place in which, and also being like 10 years old, not that we were 10 years old, but like also just not having certain life experience yet that we have now. So like I have compassion for that as well. But
Absolutely.
I almost feel like I thought we were going to get so into like, then Pavan and I were in 2008, we were both working as healers and having like really interesting experiences with our clients as healers. But then we were really encouraged by mentors in our life that were older, like to join what really was an MLM business, that they were like, oh, you're going to get so burnt out doing your work. Like you'll need another way to have income and like, you need to understand business differently. And so like we ended up in this MLM that was around wellness and nutrition. And like in 2008, Donald Trump bought the company. So like for a while, like Yvonne and I were like in these meetings and events with like Donald Trump. We were selling
Yes.
vitamins. We were like and it's just these separation. Like, oh, the traditional world isn't for us. So we're going to do this non-traditional craft. Oh, you can't make traditional money doing the non-traditional craft. So here's this like other sort of non-traditional way to make
And
non-traditional money.
yeah, there was always like a curveball before you really anchored into the thing you were doing. So, we had just barely started our businesses with clients, as healers in a healing capacity. We were doing that, but just barely grounded into this. And then these older mentors are saying, you're going to get burned out and you really need to bring, other pieces in. And so before landing the first thing, it's like, and now put this into the mix
Yes.
as well, and have this take all your energy and priority. This will be the thing that will get you the money and the success,
So
and
that you
into a
can do the
stable
work you wanna
place.
do. It's like also,
And
like, we weren't
yes,
even grounded in why we wanted the money and success besides, like, we were just trying to do our
right,
work.
we just started out.
We didn't even have ideas of, like, things we wanted. For me, it was besides, like, I had student loan debt, and I was like, "I'm gonna have to really handle
Yeah,
this." Other
likewise,
than
me
that.
too, more of the fire. Yeah,
Right, so it's just like Daddy Capricorn being like, "Here's another curveball if you wanna stay afloat," and we're not even discussing what was going on collectively in the world because it was not it was also a time of around, a lot of economic collapse. That was, like, not a good time financially in the world and in normal worlds anyway. So we were like, yeah, the normal world is collapsing. We've got to do these non-traditional things, but also do another non-traditional thing inside of the non-traditional thing. And so like I have so much compassion for even the people who like guided us in that way. Although some of those people, there's some shadow for them to look at. A lot of them
yeah,
also were really like thinking that they were helping us to create security and stability in like an unstable world. Like, I
yes.
do believe that, you know?
And, we're looking to them as having, wisdom and insight that we didn't necessarily have yet at that time. I always was very open to, if someone knows how to do something and can share that with me so that I can eliminate some of the mistakes along the way and fast track it a little bit, that sounds great. So, I'll listen to what you have to say, or I'll do it that way, if that's going to make the most sense. And most of these people were wanting the thing that they were telling us that we could have also, right? So it was like they weren't having huge financial success themselves or anything, but Ali, I agree in that they're coming from this place of, we don't have this, but we want you to be able to have it at your stage in life. And we want it ourselves also. And based on the way the economy is going and what we have learned, or the wisdom we do have, this is what we need to do.
Right. And I think this is so something I just want to land is like, right, like
Yes.
total compassion and
Yes.
forgiveness with some of the pressure and the self-induced pressure and the collective induced pressure and just how intense it was to have already invested in a traditional system. And then as soon as we graduated, be like, never mind, this thing is not allowed to support us. Like now,
Right.
like we've already paid into something that now we're like, never mind, this isn't for us. This thing doesn't get us. This thing is not about us. And it's all collapsing anyway. So we better find another way. And I think you start to see in the Capricorn era this marketing of like monetizing something you don't yet have yourself and monetizing a process that you yourself have not yet landed like and that is just all over the personal growth industry like and it is true that what you're here to teach you're going to be initiated into like the pain points of that thing but like something I think we want to really bring into this new era is like learning how to have and embody things first but
And I
like
love, I
yeah.
will just say at this point, I think it's great to bring up that we were a little bit undecided on our backgrounds and did not necessarily intend this. But now, as you're saying that, I'm just seeing like the cosmic higher chakra energy, behind you. And many of you know that Ali goes into the Akashic records. And then I chose one that has somebody behind me in a more shamanic energy in a forest. And
Oh
there's
yeah.
actually a little fire, which, maybe you could just barely see the flickering of in front of that wild dog. But it just kind of represents on the other side of the arc, there's this balance and this, it feels like it's fully expressing what we've come into in our work and the mastery
Oh,
of. And, I focus on a shamanic container and you have the Akashic container, and there's a lot more to it. But I
oh,
don't
I've
know
been
that.
privately enjoying this very much.
Yeah, it's
Like,
like,
oh my
oh,
god,
this
like
actually was
I
perfect.
know it's totally perfect. I love the backgrounds. But yeah, so basically like we kind of came into this Capricorn era, thinking we needed separation to create the Aquarian way in order
And
to
already feeling separated.
and already feeling we had an experience
Yeah.
that created separation. And then
Hmm.
we thought like you fight separation with separation. And um and
Right.
just thinking like to come into the Aquarian I way, you need to separate. And so like I guess that's what our passion is on this podcast right now is like we learned through this Capricorn period, you don't come into new ways and innovative ways and like a new non-traditional way for your life, which a lot of people are coming into. A lot of people are learning how to integrate things that are new and different into their life, regardless whether you're into the stuff we're into or not. And actually, like, and I think for both of us, like, we work with a lot of like traditional people in very traditional lives who like are learning to integrate the subtle energetics and the true authenticity into their life, which doesn't require being a shaman or
Most of our
an akashic
clients, I would
teacher.
say, I mean,
Right.
for both
So
of us, yes.
right. And so it's just like right, like the biggest thing was just learning like we you don't create success through separation. And yeah, you don't have to invest in separation. And there's just looking back, there's things we could have enjoyed, like from the benefits of having gone to college and getting a college education from like just like people in our life who weren't into a Donald Trump MLM or like weren't into even all the health coaching and spiritual and the energy work and everything we were getting into at that time. Like there were places where we didn't allow ourselves to prioritize connection and realizing like we have shared values with people who don't have shared interests. And we don't have shared values with people who do have shared interests. And
Right. Both
like
things pretty dramatic
both
aha
things are pretty big
revelations.
ahas, and we definitely still had, like, normal friends and people who but,
Sure.
like, there was ways we didn't allow we allowed things to be harder in this Capricorn season for a long time into the era, thinking that we weren't allowed to receive from these places, like, that we had to constantly reinvent the wheel like, constantly be in these curveballs, and, yeah, so I feel like that was, like, a deep thing, and then I kinda wanna just, like, jump ahead a little, so, like, d Daddy Capricorn, separation, Trump network, everyone was trying to we were all it's all good, love and light, compassion, and then, like, Aaron and I moved Pavan and I moved to, Chicago at the same
Yes.
around the same time, and started kind of realized, like, no, we just actually wanna do our work. We don't wanna do Donald Trump MLM vitamins. We wanna just do our thing, and so then we created a business in Chicago, and, we were so I think now it was, like, almost like a healing of the separation
Yes.
because
Dynamic duo wellness.
yeah, we created a company literally called Dynamic Duo. It was superhero marketing themed. Is nice. And, it was almost like a reaction to being so
Yes.
separated. I feel like we needed to, like, lean into each other and just be like, "We gotta link arms and just, like, really feel like we have someone else with us." I did also like my brother was part of our gang, but like I had realized my brother and I needed to have do our own thing. Like he was more interested in other types of like wellness business versus me and like there was some individuation I was trying to have with him. But then you moved to Chicago and we were just like dynamic duo. And
Hmm.
then I feel like that was a whole nother trajectory of just learning like again, I think just, like, putting a lot of pressure on ourselves, like, we were still young women.
We had the mentality
Yeah.
of the MLM and applied that
Right.
mentality to dynamic duo. So it was like, what meetings can we have with people that potentially will lead to events, which will lead to clients, is kind of, the simplest way to put it. So we also would do catering at certain things and we did some cooking classes, and then we each would have individual clients that we worked with one on one. But essentially, that sort of struggle, make it happen, at the end of the line there's this like glorious big payoff energy was applied to what we were doing, even after we had the realization of, okay, we're, you know, we don't want to do the MLM. We just want to be practitioners in our own right, and we can have our own business. You know, the idea was simple and good enough, but some of the, for a true way of putting it, trauma that came along with, and again, it's all good, but that came along with that sent us on a stampede in terms of our trajectory.
It just set us on a trajectory of like setting these intense goals without
Yes,
grounded action steps, because we just weren't really educated in the grounded action steps always. But I do want to really celebrate, like we did some really incredible events.
we did.
We were on a TV show, we were catering big events. We like Aaron, I'm sorry,
Well, that's
I'm
part of
sorry I
the
keep saying
thing.
Aaron.
That's fine. It's part of the thing too. Like,
Yeah,
you know, we made it happen. I mean, we've both been successful in what we've done all
yeah.
along the way. And, you know, there's been highs and lows with all of our details associated to that. But ultimately, and this is maybe a slight segue, but I just feel like we came in with soul contracts to do this work. And the thing that is parallel to the Capricorn energy is like, I don't know why this is the expression that's coming up, but like hell or high water, we're doing the work. And it was just like, we're doing it, we're committed to it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, now it looks different, obviously, but it's
Really good point. Like some of what was instilled at the start of that transit followed us into the
that
next.
gave us discipline and commitment to our spiritual paths, which we are
Yeah.
just really so grounded in. And I can't, I mean, have more gratitude for like anything really. It's just that has shaped my life, and I feel like I have a gratitude for life and a sort of calm in the storm perspective. I mean, albeit I'm human, right, and I go through all the highs and lows, but ultimately something cultivated from that, that, you know, perhaps was always in me, I think is true to some extent, right? Part of the thread connected to the soul contract. But that work in the beginning, just at first, it's like, okay, yeah, the Capricorn energy of the struggle, but it also, I don't know, there's something beautiful about the discipline and the
Commitment.
mastery in where we are now. I mean, I say that humbly, but I also say that and I claim it. You know, it's like,
Love
hey,
that.
there's a lot I don't know about, and I am fully aware there's way more of that than what I do know, but I know some things. You know, I've
Hey,
got some mastery of some things.
you've been deep in the work for many, many years. I
Yeah.
know. Same. Yeah. Well, so right. So I just think like I love this, and I also think this is a great stopping point to just like for anyone listening, like, right, like there's some hardships that are created by this sort of energy field of the discipline and the intensity and setting goals with lots of pressure. And at the same time, right, it created this like forever commitment energy. Definitely something was instilled in us where it was just like, we're doing this. We've lost too much to not do it. And just like when I think of us, the time in which we were business partners and we had a storefront for a while, which was
Yeah,
interesting. Like we did some really cool ass shit. But when
we
I
did.
and we really helped a lot of people and people had a lot of fun with our work. But I just
And again, we like, I just honoring this one more time, but it's like we were often the youngest people at the, if we were doing some kind of like networking event or, you know, certain things we were participating in to further our business and to learn more. I mean, we were cutting edge in a way where it was like no one in the room was in our camp. No one was
totally.
our age. I mean,
No one was our age, no one was our camp, no one was calling themselves dynamic duo.
right.
So jokes on that. No, but yeah, I agree. It was like, but also that's what I mean. It was like all this pressure to do
Yes.
something that like there's a reason why there weren't a million 24-year-olds thinking they were supposed
Right.
to have a seven-figure life coaching business. Now, in the world we're in now, that actually like is a thing that happens because there's a whole internet brand possibility that's really different now. But yeah, at that time we were trying to create something in
No
this
Instagram.
Aquarian time, it's different to create something like that. However,
Yeah.
Um, when I think of us, like, just to close it out, it's like, I just remember us on your Vespa in Chicago. We'd be doing these events. Sometimes we were doing like eating for creativity. So we'd bring in like wellness and the energy work and the spirituality and these like cult concepts, but we'd also bring food. And so like I just remember us, it would be like a snowy, icy night, and we'd be just like on the Vespa holding pot. I'd have like pots,
Balancing a platter.
balancing a platter of like raw cacao truffles with pots and pans, and like, still having fun with friends. I mean, at that time we were both in these like really intense relationships and trying to figure out how to have that and also have like our intense relationship, and like understanding what it is to be in an intense
Yeah, some
relationship.
of our partners didn't understand that.
Didn't always love it. Sorry, y'all. But like we didn't either. We were learning what it meant
Exactly.
to be in intense connection with someone you're creating something with, and what the boundaries are, and like what the needs were, and all of that. And of course you bring all your patterns into these types of relationships, which like eventually meant like we had to create a separation. Like we eventually had to end the business. I would say it was like 4 years into doing it. So it wasn't even like a month. It was like
Yeah.
5 years in, we were like really needed to create separation. And we like, which ended up being such a great thing. I think at the time it was really painful, like, because when you are so deeply embedded with someone on a goal, and also feeling like we've endured so much to try to make this thing happen. I think it requires like an intense fracture to be able to like have the space we both needed. So it was like not a happy time in our personal relationship, because
Right.
we needed that. I don't think we could have.
It couldn't have been any other way. I mean, we didn't know that at the time, but yeah,
Yeah.
we were so deep in with all of these things that it was just like, okay, kind of got to rip the band-aid off, I guess.
Well, and I think also it's the story of when we put super, super intense pressure on relationships to produce certain outcomes.
Oh, yeah.
Eventually, there's going to be resentment and fracture and miscommunications and all of these things. So, but the great thing about that is when we had this separation where we finally individuated, we both really, really went into our soul um, work. I mean, we were already in our soul work, but we really went into the tools that we are each meant to work with individually. And that was like the beginning of really getting into the attunement. This was around like 2012, I would say, was
Yeah.
like really when we were like really separating this from working together. And it was like you deeply went into the shamanic path, and I deeply went into working with the Akashic records.
Right.
So, also really trusting like when
And
you've
we had
already,
some healing to do. I mean,
yeah,
not just from our relationship, although that was true as well, but like, we kind of started in a place of so early on and not fully claiming our own identities. So now it was like, okay, time to break out the healing tools and figure out who the heck I am, related to all my relationships, really.
yeah, like I think we had to really see our patterns, like, and how it was
Yeah.
playing out in all of the relationships. I want to just like pause us for a minute and invite people to just check in, because like maybe
Mm.
you've had, separation. We were talking a lot about separation, and then it's like we didn't want this separation, but it had to happen, And then shortly after that, it was like I think I know I ended a serious relationship. I think and then we had all types of things going on at that
Yeah.
time, but like I just want to invite people to just drop in and just like check in to like a relationship that maybe had to fracture or separate, even if you didn't want that. Maybe it wasn't even one you were trying to. We were talking a lot about self-induced separation or community or collective culture separation, but then there's separations that like just fucking happened. And I think it's a nice moment to just like drop in and like maybe feel your heart and your belly for a moment, and just maybe connect with a separation that happened for you in Pluto and Capricorn, and where you can have some gratitude, some peace, some forgiveness, some understanding that you couldn't maybe didn't have then. and just bring some healing. Just feel some light and some healing coming to that fracture and beginning to seal, beginning to allow the if there is still a wound, beginning to let that close.